She was 24-year-old Jacqueline Ray Vandagriff, Jackie to everyone in her life. She didn't have anything with her, no bags or belongings, but they did quickly learn that she lived almost M away in Denton. The dismemberment was shocking. Even her heart had been cut out. A witness had seen who they believed was a man standing over the fire before leaving the scene, but they couldn't say anything about him. A day later, her Twitter was active, and a post on her account read, "Never knew I could feel like this." It seemed a likely conclusion that her killer clearly had her phone, and now the hunt was on to find them. Hello, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Vandagriff, but friends call me Jackie. I am currently a junior here at Texas Women's University, and my major is nutrition with an emphasis in wellness. I chose this major because I realized while working as an esthetician, which is skincare, if you're not familiar, I realized the importance of nutrition and just overall health and decided that this is what I was going to study. So, thank you for watching. I am really looking forward to learning about all of you and learning with you in this class. Jackie Vandagriff had always been an avid reader, enthusiastic about learning anything and everything. She was active and sporty too, and at the tender age of 3, she had started gymnastics, eventually competing at level in state competitions. Her best friend was also called Jackie, and they were fondly known as Jackie Squared. She said she was the smartest person she knew. She could have done anything with her life. She met you where you were at, and it was easy to be completely yourself around her. Confident and out there, yet very calm and disarming. After graduating high school in Frisco, Texas, she went on to become a licensed esthetician and then became a student at Texas Women's University in Denton, Texas. Her lifelong interest in health and fitness followed her there as she started her major in nutrition and food science, hoping for an end goal of being a nutritionist. Things were going well. Jackie was happy, and everything was progressing exactly as she wanted. The 24-year-old had recently told her friends that she wanted to come off the dating apps and get out there more. She was hoping to meet someone in person. She was also looking for a part-time job. So, with this in mind, less than 12 hours before she was found on the night of September the 10th, Jackie walked into a bar in Denton to inquire about vacancies and put her face out there. Detectives managed to trace her steps to a few places close to the University of North Texas. She first walked into Fry Street Public House Bar, and after sitting at the bar and talking to the bartender, a man sat 2 seats away joined in on their conversation. The pair seemed to be getting along well, laughing and showing each other things on their phones and having some drinks. Jackie, the man, and the bartender then left at the same time, but Jackie and the man then walked into the Shots and Crafts bar. They sat at the bar together and were joined by a group of women who they hung out with for about half an hour. Then at 9:45 p.m., Jackie and the man left. No one had followed them out, and no one else appeared to be watching Jackie either. They got into his car and he drove to a gas station. Camera showed Jackie in the front, still seeming calm and perfectly happy to be there. But this was the last footage of Jackie before their trail went cold. Amazingly, a couple of the women that the pair had met in the Shots and Crafts bar were able to give them a name. He had given one of them his business card as they got talking about fitness. Charles Dean Bryant, a 30-year-old personal trainer and bartender himself. Charles lived about 30 miles away near Grapevine Lake, but had been hanging around the Denton area trying to rekindle things with his ex-girlfriend Caitlin. Running his name through the system showed a few things over the years. A charge of forgery, possession of some marijuana, and a misdemeanor assault charge. But one thing stood out more. He had been arrested 3 times for stalking and harassing Caitlin. In fact, 3 days before Jackie was found, a protective order had been issued against him. 24-year-old Caitlin had started dating 30-year-old Charles in June, just months before. He was charming and funny, often showing up with flowers. One of their regular date spots was none other than Grapevine Lake, but call it mother's intuition. Caitlin's mom said she took one look at him and felt in her gut that he was evil. "He's going to hurt you. He's going to do something bad," she told her. and soon Caitlin was noticing the red flags herself, controlling and toxic traits. She eventually chose to end things. Not surprisingly, he did not take it well. He was persistent, making fake emails to try and contact her, turning up wherever she was, telling anyone that would listen that Caitlin was crazy. The year-old finally felt some relief when she moved to study at the University of North Texas, a fresh start away from him. But when he knocked on her dorm room door, she knew things had taken a scary turn. She had never told him where she was living. Carrying a bouquet of flowers and a letter, he had slipped by the security desk. Caitlin hid in a closet and called. He was arrested, but later that day he was back on campus. I heard him say, "Hey, it's Charles. I'm sending for you." "You know for sure it was him." "Yeah, I know it was him. Sure myself at..." "You have school here?" "No. What's your name?" Another woman he had gone on a few dates with had had a similar experience. They had barely hung out, never even kissed. But Charles had told her he loved her. She said it was a lot very quickly. He told her about his home life and that he had been molested as a child. She said something about his behavior, and the things he would say made her believe this. Cell phone records were now in the police's hands, which gave them more of a timeline. After the pair were seen in the car in the gas station, both Jackie and Charles's phones tracked them from Denton to the Haslett area where Charles lived. At 10:45 p.m., Charles had been on Facebook and posted saying, "Teach you tricks that will blow your mind." Jackie's phone was then detected near his home at about 2 a.m., and at 4:30 a.m., CCTV showed Charles walking around Walmart where he bought a shovel. Less than 2 hours later, they would find Jackie's burning body. The next day, Charles wrote on Facebook, "Full moon, let's see what trouble I can get into." He also tried to contact Caitlin again. Things were stacking up, and he was now the main suspect in her murder. Investigators called Caitlin and asked if she was safe. The first thing she asked was, "Is this to do with the murder that happened in Grapevine? Is this to do with Charles?" They couldn't confirm anything, but she knew. Because he had contacted Caitlin, which was a violation of the restraining order, they were able to arrest him, which gave them the perfect opportunity to ask about Jackie. On September 3, just days after Jackie was found, Charles was at the station. They showed him Jackie's picture, and he said he had possibly seen her at a bar, but there was no interaction, and he didn't personally know her. As they talked, authorities were down at his house, pulling it all apart. They still couldn't explain how she had died, and this did make charging him with anything difficult, especially as he was starting to shut down. That's when they made the call to bring in Texas Ranger Jim Holland. He specialized in high-profile murder cases. "Hey, how you doing?" Psychopathic and sociopathic crimes. He was confident in being the person to take over. Jim said a lot of these people actually will tell you. They want to tell someone. Charles knew what had happened to Jackie, and he was going to tell him, "You know, you're not a violent dude. You haven't really been in trouble. You know, you obviously work out. I mean, you're stud, right?" He took the approach of good cop, really trying to get on Charles's side. He said he wanted to see him almost like a drinking buddy, and this worked. Charles was chatty and smiley and clearly trusted Jim. The more they talked, the closer Jim was leaning into Charles, who was sat right in the corner. The walls were literally closing in, and Charles was getting close to telling him what had happened. Jim finally got Charles to admit he had been with Jackie that night. He heard her asking about a job and jumped in to talk. He said when they left the bar, it had been raining, so he'd offered her a ride home. She was grateful and gladly accepted. It makes sense it was raining. I thought it would offer a ride home. Jim knew he was getting to the bottom of things, so he ordered them a pizza and some coffee. As he put a couple of slices onto a paper plate, Jim calmly asked Charles about Caitlin. "Was there a time that you pictured her as this girlfriend that did you wrong, or did anything like that come into play? Was him talking to Jackie something to do with her?" A retaliation of sorts, but Charles said no and went quiet. "Okay. So something happens. Bam. There's a snap, and we need to figure out what that is. And maybe she got mad. Maybe she's given you all the signals and then cut you off. I mean, there could be all kinds of different things going on here, right? I mean, chicks, right? Chicks. 3 hours later, though, Charles said that they had started hooking up in his car completely consensually, but she wanted him to choke her with a cable tie. Jim said he knew the consensual aspect of this was a lie, and the medical examiner said there was no evidence that any sexual encounter had taken place. Charles told him that neither of them had tightened the cable intentionally, and he didn't remember it happening. But he suddenly looked down, and Jackie was no longer breathing. She didn't fight you in any way when you think it just tightened up on its own, basically. Massage that like it had a snag on something or... Okay, then what happened? She can't respond to shaker. Jim said that this was a total fabrication, adding that it was really rare when you talk to people like this that you get the full story from start to finish. They are always going to leave things out that make them look bad. What they want to do is make themselves look like a victim as much as they can, or as someone that just suddenly got caught up in something accidental. He said the level of nonsense that came out of his mouth when it came to that was just astonishing. He believed that Charles had killed Jackie intentionally, and it had likely been triggered by his ever-rowing obsession with his ex, Caitlin. Terry, what do you see in the pool? Garbage knows right now. Tell me exactly what you see occurring after that. Go down the tree. And what happens next? On fire. The fire. Why do you burn the body? At Charles's house, they found an array of evidence. A large hunting knife that they thought was used to dismember her. Jackie's Texas University bag was in his rubbish. And they also found a white plastic zip tie with Jackie's hair caught in it. In his car, they found Jackie's cell phone battery and a stun gun, which had Jackie's DNA on its electrodes. The children's pool she was found in had also come from his garden, and they found child abuse material on his phone, too. Thanks to some incredible interviewing by Jim Holland, Grapevine police charged Charles Bryant with the murder of Jackie Vandagriff. Jim had had an almost 3-decade-long career in law enforcement, investigating hundreds of murders, but he said Jackie's case stood out to him on many levels. Charles showed all of the hallmark traits of a serial killer in the making. He said, "I think that this was his disheveled murder. Was he going to stop? Why would he?" There's no doubt in my mind that if Bryant had not been arrested by the Grapevine Police Department, he would have continued to kill, and he would have gotten better, and I think as he got better and better, it would have been almost impossible to catch him. Caitlin logged onto Facebook the night he was arrested, and in a state of shock, she read what had happened. After searching Jackie's name, she froze. They were already Facebook friends. A day after Charles had killed Jackie, he had tweeted from her account, but he had also used her phone to go onto Facebook and add Caitlin as a friend. Caitlin said, "I think that he really wanted to kill me. I think that he wanted me dead. I don't know if he wanted to send a message to me or just express his anger. He just took things way, way out of hand." Jim agreed and added, "I think he enters the bar in mission mode. I think he was going to kill someone that night no matter what. I think at the end of the day, she's in the wrong place at the wrong time, and she looked too much like his ex-girlfriend." After he was charged, a vigil was held in Jackie's hometown of Frisco. Tonight, family and friends are mourning the loss of Jackie Vandagriff, the TWWU student murdered last week. A vigil has just begun in Fry's, and ENTV's Blake Holland is here with more. Blake, Drake, and Shelby. Tonight, friends and family of Jackie Vandagriff are gathered here at Frisco Common Park, not to remember the horrific crime that occurred last week, but to look back on the life of a young woman gone too soon. Yeah. You don't ever think something like this could happen to somebody you know. Friends like Olivia Reyes, who recently started living with Jackie, were shocked to hear the news this week that a body found burned and mutilated last Wednesday in Grapevine had been identified as Jackie. Disbelief. I was really shocked. It's really difficult news to process, and I'm still going through that process right now. But it's upsetting. On Sunday, police arrested this man, 30-year-old Charles Bryant, on a charge of capital murder. Surveillance video shows the pair at a Denton bar just hours before her body was found. Cell phone records also show the two traveled from the bar to Bryant's Hassland home. A purse belonging to Vandagriff was found by police in a trash can at the home on Sunday, and in the hours before Vandagriff's body was found, Bryant is seen purchasing a shovel at an area Walmart, matching up with evidence in his backyard that someone had tried to dig a hole. Despite the large amount of evidence, those who knew Vandagriff still left with questions into the murder of a selfless friend who they say did not deserve this. Something like this should never happen. And we do know tonight that Charlesine Bryant does remain in jail on $1 million bond on that charge of capital murder. Tonight's candlelight vigil is set to get underway at around sunset. We're live in Frizz, Blake Holland, NTV News. Charles Bryant pleaded not guilty, so now it was time to go to trial. Charles's lawyers called her death an accident. A tragic one, of course, but an accident nonetheless. They maintained to the jury that the pair had had a lot to drink and had consensual sex in his car. After she died in a drunken and panicked state, he felt he had to dispose of her body and cover his tracks. Yes, it was bad, and it was most definitely tampering with evidence, but murder? No. But prosecutors said the medical examiner had already ruled out evidence of a sexual assault, and there was no evidence to suggest any kind of sexual encounter. Her belongings were in his house and car, which he had tried to get rid of. Her DNA on the stun gun and hair on the cable tie. And the fact that he dismembered her too, that was dark enough by itself. If it was an accident, then why on earth would you need to do that to her? The prosecution said, "Why cut out the heart? What does it have to do with disposing of a body? I want that image to sink in." And the motive? Well, they said the same as Jim. They believed it was linked to the stalking and harassment of Caitlin. They said she might have been victim number 1, with Caitlin being victim number 2. One could also argue that the cutting out of Jackie's heart seemed particularly pointed. 2 days later, and now her accused killer is finally on trial. That's right. Testimony started today in the trial of Charles Bryant Jr., the man seen with Jackie at the bar that night. Our David Guins has been tweeting and updating us from the courtroom. He joins us now live with the latest from the court today. Good afternoon, Cynthia. Testimony wrapped up here about, Ago. The jurors so far have heard descriptions, but have not yet seen surveillance video at a variety of Denton businesses that show Jackie Vandagriff with the man prosecutors say killed her hours later. It's my daughter, Jackie. On the stand today, Ricky Vandagriff says it wasn't like Jackie to not call or to make plans for her mom's birthday. It was on that day, just a few hours later, the couple learned that Jackie was dead. During opening statements, defense attorneys admit that Bryant did commit a crime by attempting to dispose of her body, but they told jurors that she died during what the defense called consensual sex in Bryant's car. He wigs out. He is in her car with a young lady who has died during the course of sex. However, prosecutors plan to lay out Jackie's final hours for jurors to show how Bryant took the vibrant year-old out of a bar and away from her loved ones forever. Tragically, an evil, destructive figure stepped in front of her on that path. Jurors on Tuesday are expected to see a lot of surveillance video in the courtroom. This trial is expected to last all week. Charles Bryant faces life in prison if he's found guilty. Live in Fort Worth, David Guins, Channel News. The judge wanted to see if Caitlin's story and history of him was relevant enough to be admitted into evidence. So, without the jury present, Caitlin bravely sat on the stand and told the court everything. Sadly, in a blow to the state's case, the judge decided that Caitlin could not tell this story to the jury. In another interesting move, the prosecution decided against playing Jim Holland's hour-long interview, instead saying that if Charles wanted to tell his side, he could sit on the stand and tell it. Whereas some might have seen this as a risky move, it was actually very smart. Was he going to remember what he had said and stick to the story? Was he going to get the timeline right? It was a very good way to trap him in his lies. Charles declined to testify. Ken Mulsina here with us. We saw you on the 4 o'clock show earlier, but you spent much of your day in court. What was going on inside? Well, a lot of just routine day kind of testimony. We know this. The details about Jacqueline Vander's murder, those are certainly gruesome. But today, the testimony from the stand at Maitland focused on placing both the victim and the suspect, Charles Bryant, in the same place on September 3rd. She seems just fine. We just chatted about how her night was going, school, typical things. Student Sherbogue was one of the witnesses on day 2 of the trial. She testified to seeing both Vandagriff and Bryan out for drinks along Fry Street in Denton the night she was last seen alive. Surveillance video used in the trial showed as much. The female sat pretty close to us, and, us ladies, we wanted to go and talk to her. So we chatted with her for a little bit, and then the man was talking to the bartender, and then eventually to us. Aside from Vogue, Tuesday's testimony mostly dealt with a list of expert witnesses, which also included an FBI agent who explained how cell phone data was used to track both Vandagriff and Bryant's phones that night. The next activity I have is on the victim from 2 a.m. And the phone? The bar is kind of about right here. So we started moving south, and so utilizes Tower Sector. Then it shifts, goes farther south at a.m., and then at a.m. So kind of somewhere between and overlap between these two towers. As everyone rested their cases, both sides felt confident, but the jury sided with the prosecution. Today, a quick verdict in the murder of TWW student Jackie Vandagriff. Tarrant County jurors taking just 2 hours to find Charles Bryant guilty. We, the jury, find the defendant, Charles Dean Bryant Jr., guilty of the offense of murder and convicted Charles Bryant of capital murder. As there was no other provable aggravating factors like kidnapping or rape, he avoided the death penalty. So in E, he was sentenced to life in prison. In a statement, Jackie Vander's parents said, "This is the day they've waited more than months for." However, it certainly doesn't ease any of the grief over the loss of their daughter. Her convicted killer, Charles Bryant, today in court showed no reaction when the jury convicted him of murder and then sentenced him to life in prison. Now, during closing arguments for the sentencing phase, prosecutors brought up the fact that Charles Bryant had a stalking incident with a previous girlfriend, and that investigators had also discovered child pornography on his phone. 2 additional reasons they told jurors to sentence him to the max of life in prison. After the verdict was read, Vander's family, who sat through days of horrific and graphic testimony surrounding her murder, shared that they are starting an endowment at TWW in Denton, where Jackie went to school to, in their words, build on her legacy of kindness and compassion. It was a hard case. It was hard for the state. It's hard for the defense, but I think that our system works. Bryant's attorneys added they've already appealed the decision. He also was convicted of years in prison for tampering with evidence that will be served at the same time that this life sentence that the jury handed down this afternoon. Live in Tarrant County, David Gouins, Channel News. He could get a shot at parole after years, but as we know, this is not guaranteed. He also got an extra years for tampering with evidence, and this will run concurrently. Caitlin said she really struggles with a feeling of guilt, like she was somehow in the middle of what had happened to Jackie. It is something she dwells on every single day. But there is no way she could have done anything to change what happened. It is all just tragic on every level. That night, Jackie had walked into a bar, hoping to meet new people and maybe land a nice little job. And yes, she did get chatting to someone she clearly got on well with. You meet new people, and you believe most of them are good. She laughed, she chatted, she connected. She got into his car, trusting him, thinking he wanted to save her a long walk home in the rain. What a kind person she must have thought. Thinking about the moment she realized the danger she was in is really devastating. Jackie's family got an internship in health and wellness set up at Texas Woman's University in her name. And her friend said she left a beautiful legacy and the world is darker now that she's not in it. Her uncle said, "What would Jackie say if we could talk to her? We believe she would say, 'Remember me. Remember my hopes and dreams for the future and my plans to get there. We are so grateful to all of our viewers and all of our patrons, and we'd love you to consider joining our little community over on Patreon. It supports us as a channel, and we couldn't be more appreciative of anyone that does so. It also gives you behind-the-scenes extra episodes and early ad access.